Welcome to Lake Annecy. My name's Rob Chisholm and the pilot flying is Dean Bird. He's not under any tuition. He bravely went out to Lake Annecy on his own at 28 hours. Here he's making a common mistake that British pilots make in the Alps. He does a rear launch in the Alps, do forward launches. It's not wind, so we're going to freeze this now. And the glider's come up too quickly on the left hand side. Now the pilot's given no preparation to what's going to take place next, which is a common thing I see from many pilots who fly here. They typically just run off the hill, and the tandem pilot, who's got more experience, says, oh well, I'll turn left so we don't have a mid-air. Now the pilot here is going to be stressed, not so much the tandem pilot but the novice at 28 hours. So we're in this place that's foreign to them. Heart rate's up. You've got to know so much more about just taking off here and floating around. It is primarily a thermic site. There's high cirrus there with contrails in the sky and blue sky, so there's a lack of cumulus clouds. So to me that would point out there's a lack of thermals, or not very big. So as we turn around here left, you'll see the sun coming through. See those little lines? That's where the jets go through and leave their little vapours. There may be even a front coming through later in 2 days' time. So we'll go back to the flying now. Blue glider, moving very fast. That's because there's no wind at altitude in France, really. You can fly through the air very, very fast. So if you're in thermals and you come out of them, exit and go into them, everything happens a lot quicker. If you're in the UK, the thermal travels with the wind. If it's 10-20 miles an hour, that's the speed it goes along the ground. When it makes contact with the ridge, it accelerates, it comes up the ridge very quick. Here in France, you've got the beauty of taking your time, going back to catch that thermal, which the pilot here has done, and gain some altitude. Now if you're a novice, you should be looking at that lake, seeing if it's flat, seeing if the wind's picking up. Obviously you would have been to the landing field prior to the flight, so you know where it is. Other aspects of thinking here, because now you're in the air, you can see clearly that shadow from the top of the hill. It's a spine-back ridge in theory. You wouldn't want to ever go into the sinking air mass because you just sink and it's going to be full of dead air, rotor, and it'll not be very nice. So obviously if you're from the UK, you may fly up and down this ridge. And that's because you're into the thinking of ridge lift. Get away from ridge lift. You can fly away from the ridge and catch thermals. You can always come back to the ridge if you wish. Now the courses I run when I take people down here, I give them tasks and goals. Generally they follow me or they come on tandem. So we're going to freeze it again so I can show you what a task would be like. I would fly along this ridge, and I'd get the student and expect them to follow me all the way along, but I'd be away from the ridge at times. I'd make them push out and catch the thermals that are out away from the ridge. Get away from thinking ridge soaring. UK pilots tend to think that a lot. So when you're flying here, one other little factor I better point out at this early stage, I think, is if you're not used to it and you don't know much about weather conditions, you see that bump in the distance? Well, around there you could actually get the air coming around the corner because the wind might not actually, if we can use the technical word, be on the hill. So you may be in the misconception and think it's actually very safe to fly, whereas in fact you take off, get in the air, and it'd be full of rotor because the air will actually be coming over the top of the mountain. And you won't know that. So you've got to know this. There's an awful lot more meteorological conditions going on in the Alps than there is a slope facing in the UK. Taking out wind meters, etc. is not going to help you. So do seek local knowledge, or go with a school that's local, or myself, pay myself, take me out there, and I'll tell you about all these flying and what you have to do. So here, I would consider this site to be a very basic elementary level, but I do have 20 years and I knew what it was like when I first went here in '94. It was very exciting, very stimulating. I had a lot of fun. I maybe knew a little bit more than obviously some pilots that turn up because I teach for a living, etc. But you really got to set tasks. You don't want to be flying around this slope just thinking, where will I go next? Here's another thermal, let me bump into it. have a flight plan of what you're going to do, plan it out before you even go to the area to fly. So when you've flown for a couple of hours, because that's literally what you're doing, a couple of hours in the air, you're going to come into land. And again, relating back to the UK, you may land on top of the ridge. Well, in France, not really a good idea to land on top of the mountain. Generally speaking, they land in a landing area away from the mountain at the bottom. This is a perfect time to understand which way the wind is coming from. The air may be a valley breeze down here, and you may be coming into land. So we'll freeze it there. Look at the bottom of the screen. We've got a windsock. We've got danger area, road. We've got a road what's about 7-8 feet high tree line or bush or hedge. You don't want to fly into those things. But appreciate the main thing. If you've got altitude, you could fly across the landing area, do a 180, come back. That way, you know which way into wind is, because it could change during the course of the day. You do get katabatic winds in the mountains. That's all that heavy air in the shadows at the end of the day will flow down and change the wind direction. So you can't just turn up, look at the landing area and say, well, that's the wind direction when I get there in 2 hours. Obviously, it'll be exactly the same. It won't. It will have changed. So also, when you're coming in and you've got all this altitude, there's other pilots here flying around. So a general way I approach to land here is to mark out my ground speed into wind and just make a quarter of a mile, half a mile glide and come into land. So here we are, the pilot's coming in. I would have kept more to the right of the field where there's a load of area with no pilots in, because there's a lot of pilots there. There's other objects I could fly into. There's a road sign just there coming up. Well, who put that there? You've got a glider packing up, the red glider. What you want to do is come in, land safe, and at the end of the day, go home happy pilot. Always learning, and if you want to know more about flying in the Alps, do contact Rob Chisholm at Freeflight. Safe flying, take care. Bye for now.